He was born of light, she was born of darkness. Their hearts met where no one dared to stand, between peace and destruction. The moon hung lower than usual that night, its light dim and strange. From the highest tower of the palace, Luna watched it quietly, her fingers pressed against the cold glass. She had seen this before, the same color of sky, the same restless air on the night she gave birth to her son. The eclipse was returning. Behind her, Alexander entered, his black cloak brushing the marble floor. "Another sleepless night?" he asked gently. Luna smiled faintly. "The moon feels uneasy. Every time it fades like this, something changes." He came to stand beside her, their reflections glowing together on the window. "The prophecy is nearly upon us," he said. "Elias will soon have to choose which part of him rules, the light or the shadow." Luna turned to face him. "He's still just a boy, Alex." "He's 18, Alexander reminded softly, "and the council already fears him." Outside the window, faint red mist drifted along the forest edges, the mark of an approaching war. In the training yard below, Elias moved like a shadow of his father, swift, tall, silent. The sword in his hand cut through air as if the wind itself obeyed him. When he stopped, sweat ran down his face, catching the pale moonlight. But his eyes, one gold, one silver, carried something distant, as if he could hear a voice the others could not. From the edge of the field, Captain Rowan approached. "Enough for tonight, my prince. You'll wear yourself out." Elias wiped his blade. "I can't sleep. The whispers are back." Rowan hesitated. "The same ones from the border?" He nodded. "They call my name. They sound like—" He stopped, unsure if he should say it aloud. "Like a girl," he finished quietly. The captain frowned. "Then she's from the other side. Forget it. The eclipse war is rising again. No good comes from the border." But Elias only looked toward the dark forest beyond the walls, where a faint silver light flickered once, then vanished. Later that night, he sneaked out through the garden gate, the same one his mother used to escape palace noise long ago. The forest hummed with unseen energy. Every step brought him closer to the sound he'd been hearing for weeks, a soft humming, almost a song. And then he saw her, a girl about his age, barefoot, dressed in torn gray robes. Her hair was pale as moonlight, her skin marked with faint glowing lines that pulsed like living veins of light. She stood by the river, humming the same melody he heard in his dreams. When she turned, her eyes widened in shock, one blue, one crimson. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "If they find you, they'll kill you." Elias froze. "Who are you?" She hesitated, fear and defiance in her voice. "Lyra, of the Shadow Clan." The name hit him like thunder. The Shadow Clan, sworn enemies of his kingdom. But before he could speak again, the forest shifted, the wind howled, and she was gone, leaving only the echo of her voice. Back in the palace, Luna woke with a start. The moon outside her window had turned half red. She placed a hand over her heart, whispering, "Alexander, it's beginning." The next day, the palace was alive with talk of war. Messengers ran through the halls, council members shouted behind closed doors, and guards doubled their patrols. The eclipse war, long prophesied, was moving closer. But Elias could not stop thinking about the girl, Lyra. Her voice still echoed in his head, the way she said his name, though he'd never told her who he was. At breakfast, his parents noticed the distance in his eyes. Luna watched him quietly, the way only a mother could. "You've been quiet since dawn." He forced a smile. "I didn't sleep well." Alexander placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "A restless mind can be dangerous before war. Focus, Elias. The packs will look to you soon." Elias nodded obediently, but his heart wasn't in the room. He had already decided. That night, he would go back to the border. The forest was darker than before, as if the trees themselves sensed betrayal. Elias moved silently, his wolf senses heightened. He found the same river, the same moonlit clearing. She was there again. Lyra knelt beside the water, her reflection rippling with silver and crimson light. When she saw him, she stood quickly, alarmed. "You shouldn't have come." "I had to," he said simply. "You left too many questions." She shook her head. "Your people and mine don't meet like this. It's forbidden." He stepped closer. "Then why were you here?" Her lips parted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because the voice of the eclipse told me to wait for you." Elias frowned. "You hear it too?" She nodded slowly. "The same whispers you hear. They come from the bond our bloodlines share. The light and the shadow are trying to reunite." For a long moment, they just stared at each other, the heir of the light and the girl of the shadows, drawn by something neither of them could fight. The air between them was heavy with unspoken truth. Then Lyra took a step back. "If they find out, they'll kill us both." Elias's voice softened. "Then let them try." Their hands brushed, just barely, but it was enough to make the moon flicker above them. Far away, Luna felt the shift. She was in her study, reading the prophecy scroll when the candle flames bent sideways. Her mark, long dormant, pulsed once under her skin. She froze. "Alexander," she whispered, sensing her son's energy entwined with something foreign. Her husband entered moments later, his expression grim. "He left the palace," Alexander said quietly. "The guards found his tracks leading to the border." Luna's heart pounded. "The border? The Shadow Clan?" He nodded. "Our son is following something dangerous." She looked out the window, the moon glowing blood red again. "Not something," she said softly. "Someone." Back by the river, the air began to stir. Lyra stepped back as dark mist curled at her feet. "They've found me," she said, panic rising in her voice. "You have to go." But Elias refused to move. "Not without you." Out of the shadows emerged 3 figures, cloaked warriors with eyes like black glass. "Lyra of the Shadow Clan," one hissed. "You were told never to cross the border." She stood in front of Elias instinctively. "He's not the enemy," she said. The leader sneered. "Then you are." The moment they drew their blades, Elias shifted. Silver and gold light exploded around him, his wolf form massive and glowing. The shadows lunged, but his snarl shook the forest. In seconds, they were gone, fading into mist. Lyra fell to her knees, trembling. Elias shifted back, panting, his skin marked with faint silver burns. She looked up at him, at the boy who risked everything for her. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. He smiled softly. "I don't regret it." Her voice broke as she looked at his hand reaching toward hers. "You're the heir of the light. I'm born from the shadow. Our love would start a war." He touched her fingers gently, "Then let the world burn before I lose you." The next morning, the palace woke under an uneasy sky. Storm clouds rolled across the horizon, dark and heavy, though the air was warm. Luna stood on the balcony, her silver hair moving with the wind. She could feel the pulse of her son's heartbeat, far, faint, and no longer alone. Alexander joined her, fastening his armor for counsel. "Still no word from him?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "But I can feel him." And something else, a second energy. His brow furrowed. "The shadow?" "No," she whispered, something softer. "It's not danger. It's affection." Alexander sighed, eyes dark. "Affection from the Shadow Clan is still danger." Far from the palace, Elias and Lyra walked along the border path that divided their worlds. Neither spoke for a while. The forest around them felt alive, breathing with their silence. Finally, Lyra said, "You shouldn't keep coming here." He smiled faintly. "You keep saying that, but you're still here." Her lips curved just slightly. "Maybe I'm curious." He stopped walking and faced her fully. "About me." Her eyes met his, one blue, one crimson. "About why you feel so familiar." He stepped closer. Maybe it's because we're not supposed to be enemies. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Then she whispered, Elias, if they find us, it won't matter what we're supposed to be. He didn't care. His hand found hers, their fingers locking naturally, as if they'd been waiting a lifetime to meet. The air shifted, glowing faintly where their hands touched, silver and red light twisting together like two threads of fate. Lyra gasped. Do you feel that? Yes, he said softly. It feels like the world just stopped fighting. She smiled through her fear. That's why it's dangerous. Back in the palace, Luna's vision blurred suddenly. The world around her vanished, replaced by white fog. She was standing in a vast field under the eclipse, two silhouettes ahead of her, her son and a girl glowing in shadowed light. A voice echoed through the fog. The heir's heart will bind what the moon divided, but a bond born in forbidden light can save the world or end it. The vision broke. Luna stumbled, catching herself on the table. Alexander! She called. He rushed in, worry in his eyes. What happened? She looked up at him, her expression pale. Our son, he's fallen in love with a girl from the Shadow Clan. Alexander froze. That can't be. I saw it, she said firmly. The prophecy warned us. If love unites light and shadow, peace may follow, or destruction. He turned away, his voice rough. Then he's risking the end of both worlds for love. Elias didn't know that, not yet. He only knew the warmth of Lyra's hand in his, the way her laughter sounded softer each night. They met in secret every evening by the river. Sometimes they talked about the stars, sometimes about how both their people taught them to hate what the other represented. And sometimes, when silence filled the air, they simply stood close, saying nothing at all. One night, Lyra whispered, I used to dream of seeing your kingdom. The city of gold, they say, shines under the moon. He smiled. I could show you. She shook her head. If I cross that border, I'll never return. Then don't, he said quietly. Stay. For a moment, her eyes softened with longing. But then the wind shifted, carrying the scent of danger. Lyra turned sharply. They're tracking me. Elias reached for her hand. Run. They sprinted through the trees, wolves howling in the distance. When they reached the border wall, Lyra stopped. Go back, Elias. They can't see you with me. I'm not leaving you, he growled. She pushed him back with surprising strength, her hand glowing red. Don't make me choose between your life and mine. Before he could answer, shadow guards appeared. She whispered, Forgive me. A flash of crimson light filled the forest, and she was gone. At that same moment, Luna felt her heart twist painfully. Her mark burned, and Alexander caught her as she staggered. What is it? She gasped for air. He's in danger. The shadows have taken her, and he's going to follow. Alexander's eyes hardened. Then, the prophecy has begun. For 2 nights, the palace slept under a red-stained sky. The eclipse was near, and the moon no longer felt kind. Elias hadn't been seen since dawn. In the council hall, Luna stood beside Alexander as the elders shouted over one another. The prince has broken the sacred border. He's betrayed the light. Alexander's voice silenced them all. Enough. My son is not the enemy. But his hands were clenched so tightly the veins stood out. Luna whispered. He went after her. Alexander's jaw tightened. Then he's walking into war. The forest of the Shadow Clan was nothing like home. Dark mist rolled over black leaf trees, and the air tasted of iron. Elias moved quietly, wrapped in a cloak that carried the faint scent of moonlight. Every sound made his wolf stir restlessly inside him. He followed the pull of Lyra's energy until he reached the edge of a ruined temple. Torches burned blue. Soldiers in obsidian armor stood guard. When they changed shifts, he slipped inside. Chains glimmered in the half-light. Lyra knelt in the center of a stone circle, wrists bound by crimson sigils. Her head lifted the instant he stepped closer. Elias, she breathed, disbelief and fear mixing in her voice. What are you doing here? He knelt. hands shaking. I couldn't stay away. You shouldn't have come, she whispered. If they find you, then they'll have to kill us both. Her eyes softened, even as tears slid down her cheeks. I told you our love would start a war. He smiled sadly, then let it start with me. He pressed his palm to the runes. Silver light burst from his skin, shattering the chains. Back in Silver Ridge, the ground trembled. The sky split open with streaks of red lightning. Luna's mark burned bright enough to light the room. She gasped, gripping Alexander's arm. He's broken the seal. The eclipse has begun. Alexander turned to the council. Summon every pack. We marched to the border. Elias and Lyra ran through the forest as horns sounded in the distance. Behind them, shadow wolves gave chase, eyes glowing like coals. Lyra stopped suddenly. We can't run forever, he turned to her. Then we fight together. Their wolves burst forth in twin flashes, his shining gold and silver, hers deep red threaded with black. They moved as one, their howls crossing in the air like music. Light and darkness met, twisting into a storm that scattered the hunters. When the last of them fled, Lyra stumbled, exhausted. Elias caught her before she fell. Her face was pale, her voice weak. They'll blame you for this. He cupped her face. Then let them. You're worth every war in the world. She leaned into his touch, trembling. I don't want you to die for me. I won't, he promised. Not if I can help it. As the armies prepared, Luna sat alone in the Temple of the Moon. She closed her eyes, praying for guidance. The goddess's voice came soft but cold. When light loves shadow, the world must choose what survives. A tear slipped down Luna's cheek. Then show me how to save them both. The moon flickered and she saw two futures. One bathed in gold, where Elias returned alone, and one drenched in red, where he and Lyra stood together amid ruin. When she opened her eyes, Alexander was there. What did you see? She looked at him with quiet pain. Whichever path he chooses, we lose something we love. He pulled her close. Then we'll stand beside him until the end. By sunrise, two great forces faced each other across the valley. The silver banners of the Moon Kingdom and the dark flags of the Shadow Clan. Between them, Elias and Lyra stood, hand in hand at the very center. Alexander's voice boomed across the field. Elias, hail, Prince of Silver Ridge, step away from her. Elias lifted his chin. Father, she's not the curse. They are. The prophecy isn't about hate, it's about balance. The Shadow King's voice followed, deep and bitter. That boy carries the blood that destroyed our line. Give him to me and the war ends. Luna's heart broke, hearing both sides demand her child's life. The moon above turned half gold, half red. The eclipse had reached its peak. Elias looked at Lyra. If I stay, they'll kill you. If I leave, they'll kill us all. She took his hand, eyes glowing faintly. Then let me help you decide. She pressed her forehead to his. Their marks flared, silver and crimson light wrapping around them. Luna shouted, "No!" But it was too late. The light expanded, swallowing the valley. Wolves fell silent, banners burned, time itself froze. In that blinding moment, Elias whispered, "I choose both." When the light faded, the armies were gone. No blood, no smoke, only peace. The sun rose pure white for the first time in years. Luna and Alexander found their son and the girl lying side by side in the grass, alive, their hands still joined. The mark on his neck had changed, no longer gold or silver, but the soft white of dawn. Alexander knelt, his voice breaking. "You did it." Elias opened his eyes, weak but smiling. The prophecy was never about destroying shadow. It was about teaching light how to love it. Luna held him close, tears shining like moonlight. And high above them, the moon turned whole again. The valley was silent after the light faded. No smoke, no bodies, only wind and the soft murmur of rivers that had once run red with war. Luna walked through the field barefoot, the dew glistening against her gown. Everywhere she looked, wolves of both kingdoms stirred awake, confused but alive. The light had not destroyed them. It had changed them. She found Alexander kneeling beside their son. Elias's breathing was shallow but steady, his hand still locked with Lyra's. When he opened his eyes, the colors within them were gone. They were a clear, soft gray, like dawn after a storm. "You're safe," Luna whispered, touching his cheek. He smiled faintly. "So are they." By sunrise, the two armies gathered in silence. No one spoke first. The Shadow King, his armor cracked and dull, stood across from Alexander. For the first time in history, there was no hate in their eyes, only exhaustion. Alexander stepped forward, his voice calm. "No one won this war. It ended because our children refused to hate." The Shadow King looked down at his daughter, who lay sleeping under Luna's cloak. "She carries both bloods now," he said quietly. "If she lives, then perhaps we all can." He extended his hand. Alexander gripped it without hesitation. The gesture rippled through the crowd, wolves bowing, weapons falling to the ground, growls fading into peace. Weeks later, the palace gates opened again. Banners of silver and black hung side by side for the first time. Children chased each other through the courtyards. Laughter replaced the sound of horns. Elias and Lyra stood on the balcony above the crowd, still weak but recovering. When the people saw them, they knelt. Luna whispered to Alexander, "It feels strange, doesn't it? To see the light and the shadow kneel together." He nodded, slipping his hand into hers. "We fought for it long enough. Let them have peace now." That night, they held a quiet feast, not of victory, but of survival. Luna wore a gown the color of moonlight. Alexander's armor was gone, replaced by a simple royal cloak. He poured her wine and smiled. "You were right, as always." She laughed softly. "About what? That love could change the world?" Elias recovered quickly, though his powers had changed. He could no longer call fire or shadow, but everywhere he walked, plants bloomed and wounds closed. When he touched Lyra's hand, light shimmered around them, a reminder of what they'd endured. One morning, he joined his parents in the throne hall. "I don't want the crown," he said gently. "Not yet." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "And why is that?" "Because I want to rebuild what we broke. I want to help both sides heal first." Luna's eyes glistened with pride. "Then you're already more of a king than either of us ever were." Lyra stepped beside him. "And I will help him. My people trust me now." Alexander placed a hand on both their shoulders. "Then the throne will wait. Let peace be our rule for now." Much later, when the palace was silent, Luna and Alexander walked through the royal gardens. The moon shone full again, white and calm. Fireflies drifted among the roses that had grown back after the war. Luna leaned into him, resting her head on his chest. "I used to fear the moon," she said softly. "I thought every time it turned red, it would take something from me." He smiled, brushing his lips against her hair. "And now?" "Now I think it was just trying to give something back." He laughed quietly. "You always see the light, even in the dark." She looked up at him, her eyes glowing faintly gold. "Because I found mine in you." He kissed her then, slow and steady, like a promise that peace would last. Above them, the moonlight spilled over the fountain, forming a perfect circle of silver and gold. Years passed. The eclipse war became a story told to children around the fire. The world learned to live under one moon again. Elias and Lyra became envoys of peace, traveling between kingdoms. Everywhere they went, light followed them. Some said the gods themselves had blessed their union. Others said they were the blessing. And in the palace, Luna and Alexander grew older together, still walking hand in hand, still ruling with calm hearts. One night, as they watched their son's carriage disappear down the mountain road, Alexander whispered, Do you remember the first night I met you? Luna smiled. In the garden. I thought you were just a stranger hiding from the crowd. He chuckled. I was, but you were the only thing worth finding. She leaned against him, whispering, Then you found me, and now we've found peace. On the anniversary of the eclipse, the moon turned white and gold. The two wolves of legend, the silver and the black, appeared on the hill outside the city, their howls joining in one long, beautiful note. The people looked up, knowing what it meant. Light and shadow were no longer enemies. They were one. Luna watched from her balcony, Alexander's arm around her. Their son's laughter echoed faintly from the valley below. For the first time, she whispered, the world feels quiet. Alexander smiled. That's how peace sounds. The camera of the story would slowly pull back then, showing the palace bathed in moonlight, the two wolves side by side, the sky turning brighter until only light remained. If you love this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Your support helps this story reach more amazing listeners like you.